Welcome to Hot Topics in International Trade, brought to you by Braumiller Law Group and Braumiller Consulting Group.
Hi, this is Bob Brewer with Braumiller Law Group and Braumiller Consulting Group. Welcome to the podcast. With me once again, I have Brandon French, Senior Associate Attorney here at Braumiller Law Group. How you doing, Brandon?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, it's been a little while since I chatted with you.
For sure.
But wow, since I've chatted with you, it's been a lot going on with these reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, we've done our best to try to keep everyone updated on what's happening on a daily basis. And some of us have even subscribed to Truth Social, so we can do that. But I just want to get some input from you, from your point of view on what's going on right now, an update.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if it's hard for even me to track, so I'm sure it's hard for everybody else to track. But yeah, obviously in April, President Trump came out with all these country-specific tariffs. Yeah, Liberation Day, where there was these new tariffs that were going into effect with higher rates depending on the countries. And obviously the one country people were, I would say, most concerned with was China. There's been a lot more, movement over the last couple months with China. Obviously, importers had dealt with initially a 10% tariff, which they thought was unfair at the time, which went up to, I believe, 34% or 44%, then 84%, and then as high as 125%.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was tough, and I think people are feeling it's went back down since the 125, back down to 10 for now. But I think we're seeing a lot of lingering effects from that, kind of when shipments came in, and like maybe a couple broker mistakes here or there have led to people who thought they were going to get that 10%, all of a sudden they're getting hit with 125% tariff. So it's kind of, it's been a difficult time for sure, kind of tracking that stuff. But as of late with China, for people who follow it closely, they've just extended it another 90 days up the 10% rate, which was a nice relief for importers because it was going to go up another, I believe, 24% at that time. So people have, companies have been rushing to get items in, trying to find that, hit that 10% mark, which is obviously a big deal. But it was extended on, I believe, just yesterday, I think yesterday, where it was extended another 90 days. So it gives people a little more time while Trump, works with China and tries to create some sort of trade deal.
Well, we loosened up on the high-end chips even. I mean, that was huge, I thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's sometimes it's just hard to tell. It feels like it's kind of like on a daily basis that he loosens up on some things, and the next day it's 50% tariff on this, and then you're like, wow. And then the next day it's, oh, but we're only going to do 10% here, but 80% tariff on this. So it's kind of something you're tracking on a day by day basis. If you're an importing company, you have to be very closely monitoring these dates, the percentages. Obviously, I know you have the chart with you, Bob, that kind of walks through that.
I don't know. Like, I was looking at this, and there's so many countries on this list, obviously. I was looking at who got hit the hardest. And obviously Brazil, but that's geopolitics.
Yeah.
That's him saying that's a witch hunt with Bolsonaro. He doesn't even like the fact that they're in BRIC, but to me, looking at that from that perspective, it's like, come on now, because everybody's coffee is going to get a lot more.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Think about what's coming in, what we need from these countries as well. I mean, there's a reason that there would be. I wrote an article on this, by the way, if you care to read it. It was really about all is fair in love and war, but apparently not trade. And it took a look at these deficits as to why he was saying that, hey, we need to go after these countries, but there was reasons behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I just mentioned this in another podcast, even with Megan. A minute ago, like Switzerland, they got hit hard too. Why? Because of the gold that gets refined there, that's coming in London to Switzerland, then the gold comes into the U.S. Why? Because we need it.
Yeah.
People looking at that just for security purposes. That's not Switzerland. It's
right.
It's what we get from them or what we need and what they need from us. There's just an imbalance there. Yeah. And so I look at all of these things with reciprocal, and I want to look at the reasons as to why this shouldn't be sometimes. Hopefully we'll come to our senses in some cases like that. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, you've kind of done a good job of staying on top of this. I mean, what are your expectations? I mean, I know where my head's going with this. Some of it's got to change.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I look kind of primarily at China because obviously it just feels like that's where most of my clients are bringing things. And obviously these other countries, it's all, every business has their own issues. But I think, the more and more that the trade deals are ongoing, like the expectation would be something eventually is probably going to be put in place. Now, what does that mean, right? Like, I don't think that means 0% tariffs on China goods, right? Like,
Not gonna happen.
I think 10% is a good number, not to mention, obviously, the Section 301 tariffs of 25%, likely 25%, depending on what list you are. I know Trump's talking about on September 1st bringing back the 10% on the last $300 billion worth of goods. So potentially people who weren't impacted might be impacted. It's not really clear what that 10% represents, but and then the other IEEPA tariff, the fentanyl one, that's another 20%. So it's right. It's, what the deal ends up being. I think there's going to be, I think best case, you're looking somewhere between 40-50% between all the tariffs. Yeah. And, worst case, if no deal is struck, I mean, I don't even want to get into worst case, right? What we thought was worst case was 125, but I think he had talked previously about going up to like some outrageous number.
200% he didn't mention. It's been crazy.
Yeah, so I just think, for the time being, it might be a good strategy while it's at 10% and while the negotiations, if you're like on the fence, like, oh, maybe it'll go down, like, I don't know how realistic that is, even if a deal is struck. So it might be a good time to try to bring in, some merchandise at this time.
Apple did that. They jumped in the front.
Yeah.
Bringing a bunch of inventory in. I don't want to steal, and some Adrian's going to sit down with me, so we know us here pretty soon this morning. And she and I are going to have a chat. And a lot of this has to do with what we're dealing with, Brandon. That's mitigation strategies around this entire thing. And wow, I mean, with China, though, it's one of my favorite topics. I got to agree with you. So I'm keeping a close eye not only on that, but also I'm really impressed with the way Sheinbaum in Mexico is kind of standing up to Trump as well. Canada doing a pretty good job too. Wrote another article on what's happening right now, which I think personally, and you may or may not agree with me, but man, China, everybody's looking to them to be their global trade partner primarily because of what's going on with all of these reciprocal tariffs. I mean, it's if you look at basically who's got what going on with China, India, I was reading this morning, even is kind of mending fences with China based on what's going on with the U.S. right now. That's huge. Yeah. 2,100-mile border that there's been, confrontation since 2020 on. But these reciprocal tariffs, I think, are just pushing countries away from the U.S. That's my own personal opinion. But when you look at what's going on and the trade deals that are going on, I mean, I even wrote an article recently, it's about, I think it was 53 African countries showed up in China to shake hands and make deals with Xi.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's interesting because he didn't, even if you don't fall on this list with the upgraded percentages, like you're still getting hit with an extra 10%. So it kind of like raises the question, like, is it worth doing business in the U.S. at that point, right? Like, does it make sense to do it elsewhere, right? 10%, most companies' profit margins, might not even be that high. So it's tough when you're kind of looking at it from that perspective.
Well, I remember you were in the trenches with us in the beginning in Section 301, and quite frankly, that was the catalyst for a lot of us looking elsewhere, checking factories out of China. I mean, so this has been going on for a long time. A lot of companies were prepared. So what percent, it's just shrinking. Does the two largest economies matter to each other? It's shrinking from the Chinese perspective.
Yeah, and I think, when 301 occurred and, businesses were kind of on the fence, like, should we relocate? Should we not relocate? And, a lot of them decided to stay in China. They found a way to maneuver their prices legally and, work on, getting stuff, potentially some items from other countries. So they didn't switch, but I would think obviously in retrospect, if they knew what was coming, right, 25% at the time was like unbearable, right? But we got up to a point, 2 months ago where we were at 180% with everything, right? That's obviously not like sustainable for companies, not to mention, when we're at that 180% and let's say there's some mistakes made, all of a sudden you're receiving penalties from customs 3 times the value, this and that. All of a sudden, something that theoretically should be costing you $10,000 is costing you $150,000, right? And like companies can't really survive like with those numbers.
Nope. Sustainability. And I don't know, we've got to get on some ground here with just firm footing, because it's hard for us to talk to companies right now, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. A lot of the calls over the last few months, it's, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm guessing, but I'm giving my best guidance based on what's provided. But a lot of times the issue is for how fast these reciprocal tariffs went in, and the changes were occurring literally daily, where the customs would come out with a new reporting number and the next day there'd be a new one for that same thing. Like there was mistakes being made. right? So it was kind of hard to track. And then there was no guidance as to, different exemptions. Like, how's the U.S. content thing apply? How does the in-transit thing apply? I don't know. I'm just like, I'm trying to figure it out as the same you are. And you're trying to base $1 million decisions on that. And like, ultimately customs does, came out with more guidance on different topics. Yeah. But it was weeks and weeks later after kind of like decisions had been made, shipments had already been in. A big thing that I saw and I'm seeing now is, when the in-transit, which was a big exemption people were trying to use for the IEEPA tariffs, people weren't really clear what that meant. For most people I talked to, they thought, get it here, get it started on the way here before a certain day and you're fine. Well, then customs came out and said, well, it has to be by vessel. So now my clients are saying like, well, how would we have known that? We shipped it by air immediately trying to hit that deadline. Now customs is saying we owe $1 million. And I'm like, I don't have a good answer for you. You owe $1 million if customs is saying that. So, it's putting people, we're having a lot of, I would say, uncomfortable conversations because it's not like something that like, we could have previously provided guidance saying like, no, this is the way you need to do it. There'll be no issues. Like, here's the law, here's the rulings, or something that like suggests the right way to do it. We're making educated guesses like at that time when the reciprocal tariffs are coming in based on the guidance customs provided. And then it's kind of getting shifted down the road, but then customs expectation isn't, oh, well, this is what it should have been, like you should be paying us now. And it's a big difference when we're talking, right, 100K versus $1 million on some of these like nuances. Like, it can't be coming in by truck, has to come in by vessel, can't go to a different location first and then come in, has to come straight here. Right. And sometimes companies aren't even aware when they're setting up these transactions that it's going to a different place before it actually gets there. Right. They're paying like a logistics company to do it. And their assumption is, well, we left by a certain date, we don't have to pay it. And like in a lot of cases, that's turning out to be false.
Last few minutes, I want to talk about pickleball with you now, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon, are you still ranked number 25 in the world in pickleball?
I think I'm ranked around number 30.
Number 30 now?
Yeah, I work too much.
Hey, I mean, what other law firm would allow you to be a pickleball professional and an attorney at the same time?
Probably not many for how how many days I've missed, but for any clients watching this, I always stay on top of everything. And but yeah, it's been cool. It's been I'm still playing a full schedule. Been a lot of the matches are on Amazon Prime these days, so it's been definitely a cool experience being able to like work at the firm and help everybody out through like these tough times, because it's been pretty busy, I'd say, the last 5 months here, but also still kind of maintaining that while I'm able to and, be able to play on TV and in front of a lot of fans. So it's cool for me.
As long as you're still enjoying it and you feel like how many years do you think you got left to pickleball?
I think I got 1 or 2 years left. I've tried to get in a little better shape now. So I'm looking for a few more years and then, move on and focus on work.
Well, what team are you on right now? Where do we find you?
I play on it's called the Carolina Hogs for Major League Pickleball. We'll have one more event left. It's in October. It's in Dallas. So anybody around the area, wants to come, reach out to the firm. We'll get you guys some tickets. That'll be fun. And then next year, it just depends on whether there's any trades or anything. So yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Cool. Hey, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate the input on the reciprocal tariffs, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope to see you again soon down here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.